Trying to get in right now. All right, let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, we'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. At this moment, I'd like to receive a recommendation for approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Is there a second? I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Thank you. The ayes have it. We have one item that's up for a public hearing this afternoon, and the procedures are, what we'll do is we'll receive a report from the planning department, after which we'll ask that if there's anyone here that wishes to testify to the committee, either on Zoom or here in chambers, they will be sworn in by a representative of our law department. After that, we'll open up the public hearing, ask for comments. Whenever that, we'll close the public hearing and then ask any committee members if they have any questions. Afterward, the council will open up to the council members for any comments or questions. This evening, we'll repeat that process. The only major difference is that we will make a recommendation this evening on that proposed conditional use request, either in favor, against, or to table the item, take time. So with that, the first item that's up for a public hearing today is the ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an oversized garage at 349 North Revere Road. Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Let me get to my page here. Okay. Nathan and Stacy Warner are seeking approval to construct a garage in the rear yard of their residence. The proposed garage measures 28 feet by 41 feet for 1,148 square feet with a height of 16 feet 6 inches. The zoning code permits an accessory garage of not more than 900 square feet for the property and 15 feet in height. As a result, conditional use approval is required to allow the additional 248 square feet of area. The proposed one-story garage would be situated 167 feet back from the front property line and 7 feet from the north property line. It's to line up with the existing driveway and set behind the dwelling, halfway back on the large property. The garage will be set on a poured concrete foundation and constructed of a metal frame structure with slate gray steel siding, which will closely match the dwelling. The petitioner has stated that the garage would enable them to maintain a clear and free driveway and the structure would only be used for the personal storage of vehicles, trailers, and yard equipment. The proposed accessory garage is a creative solution to provide a personal storage and will add value to this property and neighborhood without imposing on surrounding neighbors. Both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend approval subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, I'll ask if there's anyone here or on Zoom that would like to testify before the committee. Please be sworn in by a representative of our law department. Is there anyone here wishing to testify? Very good. We're not seeing anyone, so therefore we'll, for official reasons, we'll open up the public hearing, ask for any comments or questions. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll now move on and ask if there's any questions or comments from any of the committee members, the planning committee members. Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. So with that, we will then conduct a public hearing this evening at 7 o'clock in which the committee, after public hearing, will make a recommendation. And with that, I'm going to recommend time on the balance of the agenda, and we'll move into new legislation. And the first item, where are you? Ordinance expanding the existing downtown outdoor refreshment area within the city of Akron, establishing requirements to ensure public health and safety within the designated and/or expanded area. Is Councilwoman Williams here for this.
Thank you, Chair. Gertrude Williams on behalf of the City of Akron. On behalf of the city, and in my prior role as prosecutor, we did quite a bit of work on the original DORA. As it stands now, the DORA is the entire block where Lock 3 is, Barley House, Bowery, clear up behind the Civic, up Water, and just that one specific area. Where it stands now, we're less than 20 acres. The state of Ohio and almost every other municipality that has had DORAs has had incredibly good success with them. The original legislation provided by the state of Ohio allowed for a DORA to be 320 acres during COVID, and the success and people are really enjoying outdoor spaces. They have taken that original 320 acres and allowed for a municipality our size to have a DORA 640 acres now, and we can have up to, I believe, 6 DORAs with the size of the city of Akron. We are not looking to go that far today. But because of the success we have had, the requests of downtown businesses, and having really a huge success with the Akron Pride Festival and seeing the need to grow that footprint, we are here today to ask for an expansion of the existing DORA. If the packet hasn't been provided to you, I will make sure those all get out to you. It lays out all the requirements that the statute requires from the state, a map, a sanitation plan, a safety plan. And we've worked with the Downtown Akron Partnership, our city partners with sanitation, with the police department for a safety plan to add to what already exists for the DORA. The expansion, like I said, we're currently less than 20 acres. The expansion is going to be extensive for us. It's going to be the whole downtown. It will extend from Arche clear down to Lock 15. So that includes pretty much every liquor permit downtown. The DORA does require at least a 4 liquor permit minimum, and we're expanding that to include the downtown businesses. I would like to definitely thank Downtown Akron Partnership. They hosted 4 different town hall meetings where, you know, the public library came and talked. Other municipalities, we've talked to the county, we've talked to the other liquor permit holders, and the feedback has been incredible. Yes, expand, yes, include us. So we are here today to offer this plan. It does require at least a 30-day notice. Publication goes out, and then a vote on this has to be held within 60 days. So nothing happens today. We have quite a bit of time to talk about what's happening, what you'd like to see happen, get feedback from community members, from your constituents on what we are ultimately asking for here. But I think it is a really great opportunity. Like I said, we've had a lot of people involved in this decision, looking at the maps and making the decisions to go forward. A lot of great suggestions from downtown businesses. You know, the art museum's asking for some space. The Night Center was asking for some additional outdoor space so they could even do more programming outside. I think COVID just really opened up our eyes to what a great downtown we have, not only indoors, but outdoors, and how everybody can enjoy this going forward. The state of Ohio, the legislation that rules this, does require us to come back every 5 years to look at this legislation. We're coming back just a little earlier because we're looking for this expansion to take place by the end of the summer. Definitely by the time Akron Pride Festival takes place, and I'll go ahead and pitch Pride now, August 27th, we are staying downtown. We've outgrown the Hardesty Park space, so please come celebrate Pride with us. But definitely open to any questions. But again, this legislation is just being introduced today. It's going to go out for publication, and we can definitely have ongoing conversations to answer any questions that you may have with regards to this request for expansion.
Thank you. Very good. And I see here on the map, it will be, the proposed is 144.8 acres?
It is, yes.
Good, good. And I understand from your comments that we can, if we choose, to add additional places, correct? If we so choose.
At this point, we have the opportunity to add almost 500 more acres into this footprint.
Seems like a lot.
It is a lot, and I think with what we have here, it covers almost all of the downtown areas that should be considered, the liquor permits that are in that location. Again, with our size, 50,000 or more, we can have up to 6. So we've started small, we've decided to grow this one. There are no conversations taking place with any other ones at this point, but, you know, I never say never, but at this point, this is the expansion we're looking, this is the only door we currently are looking to do here.
It's prudent, though, to start small and then go cautiously forward. Yeah. No, and the way you included council in a lot of these conversations early on, which we certainly appreciate, and is obviously beneficial for us. But, well, you know, as it progresses through the legislative process, we'll have questions, I'm sure. I'm going to ask the committee at this time. Any committee members have any questions or comments at this time? Any committee members whatsoever? We will be recommending time this evening. Yeah, this evening, but I see that there's Solon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much, Ms. Wilms. I want to just kind of step in here and say that one of the things that I deeply appreciate is that Ms. Wilms has been very available to me to answer questions, to help me understand what the proposed expansion means, and to help me sort through the proposal. As most everyone knows by now, I'm an attorney and I'm interested in legislative underpinnings, and I'm also interested in data. And I am more than satisfied that a great deal of legwork and consideration of multiple interests have gone into this plan. I think that after many years of sinking considerable resources and time and energy into the beautification of our downtown, this makes sense. This is an opportunity to further throw open our front door and invite folks to come down and enjoy what downtown has to offer. I think equally important is that there's been a great deal of interface with public safety. We are all, you know, I guess, entertaining rival concerns these days. We want our city to grow and bloom and flourish, and at the same time, we're concerned about kids and families and safety. I'm satisfied that there have been hours and hours and hours spent exploring these two concerns, and that the outcome is a good proposal. I think it's important, too, that everyone recognize that this is not concrete, that this is something that will be reviewed and revisited as needed. And so, again, I'd like to thank Ms. Wilms particularly because she's put an extraordinary amount of time into exploring and developing this plan and making sure that she talked to folks. I look forward for any feedback from the public because that's what this is all about. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Just to add to that, the state legislature does really spell out that if there's ever a need to change, you know, grow, you know, shorten, that absolutely exists in the mechanism provided by the state. It's not one and done. It's not you can't do anything for 5 years. If there's ultimately an issue and we need to revisit it, it is allowed for at any time, the way that the state legislation is written.
Thank you. Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Wilms. I want to echo the sentiments of my colleague, Ms. Holland, who stole much of my remarks. I agree you've been very engaged, and I know that because this is the very first thing we discussed when you started this new job. So, you know, I also agree this has been a very successful undertaking, I think, over the last year. The implementation by OID and, you know, the original conception, I think, by Mr. Hardy, I think has been very successful. I thought, you know, last summer, I saw a lot of people, you know, using the DORA, and although I regret that Akron Pride is no longer at Hardesty, I thought that it and other events are very successful downtown and on Main Street. So, you know, I look forward to discussing it with this. I think it's also helpful as a process standpoint that we have this 30-day thing. Maybe that's something we can adopt for other processes, but look forward to discussing questions. I did have one specific question. I know that, you know, there's obviously a lengthy safety plan. Is it being adjusted or amended from last year's safety plan?
Yes, the safety plan as well as the sanitation plan have both been adjusted based on this growth.
And so it seems like there's additional officer presence, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess, what has the feedback been from businesses? And, have there been instances of, any kind of, violations of the law associated with the DORA? Or?
There have been absolutely no complaints with regards to the DORA. No citations, no violations, to my knowledge, not even trash complaints.
Okay.
So the limited footprint we have now has been a success, so we're definitely looking to grow off of that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Representative Holland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Councilman Malik beat me to it on that last question. And I also wanted to say that on behalf of Ward 1, I am so pleased to welcome Pride Fest to Ward 1 officially, and sorry for your luck, Ward 8.
Let's not start a turf war.
All right, okay. Let's slow down here. No, this is a great compliment, I think, for the downtown renaissance that we're seeing right now, especially on the residential side. This past weekend, got a chance to stop down for the little tour that was conducted by DAP, and it's amazing the success that some of these the developers are having in terms of leasing up this space and the absorption of these units downtown. They're just filling up rather quickly, so this would be a nice compliment. It's always nice. I like, about 6 months, a year ago, I started seeing people walking their dogs on Main Street, which is pretty cool, so this is good, but we will be taking time on this. Any further questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, Councilwoman Mosley has her hand raised.
Okey doke. Yes, Ms. Mosley?
Thank you. Gert, can you answer me this one question about the Main Street corridor? I may be missing it in the proposal, but I don't see the end of downtown where, I guess that's like a Buffalo Wild Wings that are going to be opening down there. So that's exempt from this? Is the first question.
No, that's actually included in here. It goes Main Street, and I'll make sure you guys get a copy of the map. It goes Main Street clear down to Arche at Barges, and then all the way down into Lock 15 in your ward.
Okay.
And it includes all of the liquor permits along that way. There's a few areas that goes off of Main Street to include El Patron, Greystone, the Art Museum, and the John S. Knight Center. So few variants. It does include North Side, Interbelt, and then, like I said, clear down to Lock 15. But no, that new BW3 is in the footprint.
Okay, and then my last question is, if we have an eatery or a bar and grill that opens and this has already been implemented, what happens to those new mom and pops that may open?
As long as
Will they be included, or do they have to some kind of application process?
It goes automatically with their liquor permit application through the state. It's basically the sketch. If they're included in the existing sketch, the state will go ahead and do that. It's at no cost to the liquor permit holder. If they happen to be within the map, it is automatically a designation provided to their permit. And we've talked to a couple permit holders. They want to be included. They're not sure if they'll use it. They're not sure how they would use it, but they did not want to be excluded. So it is a pretty extensive map of the downtown area, but new businesses, by the nature of the way the liquor permits are set up, would be included.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, not seeing any. I'd like to ask council also, within the legislation that's provided to us is the application to, I believe it's the state of Ohio?
Correct.
Attaches, and it has everything.
It does. It's a very similar packet, just with some updates from what we provided last time.
Yeah.
Definitely more liquor permits than last time. And then once this legislation would pass, that would be sent by the clerk to state.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion that we refer this item. Is there a motion?
Motion to refer.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it. Okay, the next item is ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a grant agreement or agreements with the Greater Akron Amenities Incorporated for construction of the Akron History Center.
Yes, hi.
Mr. Volman.
Chairman Fusco, members of the committee and council. found out shortly into my new position that Akron is the only major city in Ohio that does not have a dedicated space for telling its history and its story and its origins and all of that. That's what we want to. That's what we want to resolve right now. It's also going to be in conjunction with the lead up to our bicentennial. In the Bowery project, proposing to put a Akron History Center. We've committed. The administration is looking to do a $450,000 grant over a 2-year period. I believe the total project cost is about $2 million. I have Dave Lieberth, who is the executive director of our bicentennial commission, that would love to talk about this a little bit. And if you have any questions about the project, we're looking, ultimately we've been looking for a consent agenda. This was in the capital budget.
Yes.
And from, I believe, we're JED funds.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Lieberth, who needs no introduction whatsoever, he was witness to some of this history. We'll just say some, a very little bit, right?
He's the interim history center.
Yes, yes.
It's polite of you to say that I'm old without saying that I'm old. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is a plan that's been on the books for about 40 years. As Mr. Volman said, Ohio is the only one of Ohio's large cities that has no centralized place for the exhibiting of its history, and here we have 200 years of history since this project is kind of the leading edge of our bicentennial. The project will be located in Building D of the Bowery project. Those of you who are here, who have the handouts, you can see the Building D that's part of the 6-building project called the Bowery, which includes the Night Stage, the Landmark Building, and others, and soon to be the Crave Restaurant. But it is the only one of the buildings that is not permitted to have retail of for-profit use. The city of Akron actually holds an easement on Building D, and it is to be for nonprofit use only. And so it became a logical place for us to consider placing the Akron History Center in this property. There are 3 floors, about 3,000 usable square feet. Already, because we've had some early success with grants, we've engaged an exhibit designer to make certain that what we hope to do is feasible. Dennis and Kathy Berry, who he was the first founding director of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Together, Dennis and Kathy have done the Spy Museum in Washington, the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum in Colorado Springs, the National Museum of Psychology here in Akron, among others. And so they have presented us with the conclusion that the site is very usable for the purposes for which we want to intend it to be. And we've also had early discussions with a fabricator of exhibits, one of the best known in the country. They're actually physically located in Canal Fulton. And so we are in the process of developing the exhibit narrative that will outline what will be on these 3 floors in the future. And we hope to open it next year. And as Mr. Volman said, the total fundraising goal is $2 million. We are reasonably certain we'll be able to cover the $1.3 million that will actually can be the build-out of the exhibits themselves. And then it'll be open. And this is an important point, too. It'll be operated by the Akron Summit County Public Library. We knew that it needed a publicly based entity in order to assure its future, to seek additional funding in years from now, to change exhibits, to assure the authenticity of what goes into the exhibit didactic itself. And so the library has been willing to be our partner in this, as is the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which maintains Akron Amenities Incorporated, our fiscal agent, as is Downtown Akron Partnership. So we've been happy to have all of those people on board.
That's outstanding. No, especially I like the Summit Library piece. That's for them to operate that. That's a good fit. Very good fit.
The Summit County Historical Society, the Lighter Than Air Society, the library, and the University Archives are all in possession of both images and artifacts. And so those images and artifacts that will be in the exhibit space will come from those sources. And so we're now engaged in this process of sourcing items that will help tell the story of Akron over 200 years, including the stories that maybe haven't often been told. The stories tell about some of Akron's past that wasn't so good. I mean, we like to brag about all of Akron's successes, but one of the things history teaches us in this arc of history is that we've had failures in society and in the course of moving forward. There have been backward steps, a race riot in 1900, the presence of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s, Union men shot by civil authorities in the 1930s, civil disturbances in 1968, acquisition of large tracts of land that displaced over 2,400 African-American households, for example, in the early 1960s. Those are part of the story of Akron as well. If history teaches us nothing else, is that we can overcome our differences, we can overcome setbacks, and we can be where we are today, which is a city moving forward.
The takeover of Goodyear.
That's another good example, Mr. Fusco, and just recently, Mr. Robert Mercer's children have offered us his collection of memorabilia and artifacts to help tell that story of Sir James Goldsmith's attempted takeover of Goodyear.
Well, it was like an external villain, for lack of a better term, but an external villain coming into Akron trying to just make money, profiteer, and then Akron, though, we rallied together in an amazing way. It was just amazing to see that happen. So that's one of the good stories that we have that we could be proud of, but that's
Certainly
cool.
is. And for our fundraising, we will include not only Akron's based foundations, but the state capital budget has a proposal in front of it right now. There are federal funds that we hope will be made available for the telling of this story. And then there will be corporate giving and individual giving that allow us to reach our goal, we think.
Very cool. No, that's just outstanding. And I know they're in good hands with you, sir. Any questions or comments from any committee members at this juncture? Is there, timing-wise, in terms of the legislation itself, take a week or two? Is that okay to
I was hoping for consent agenda, but yes.
Consent
it's fine,
agenda?
yeah.
Okay, good. We can talk about that. Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Volman. Thank you, Mr. Lieberth. I could listen to Mr. Lieberth talk about Akron history for the rest of the day. I'm not proposing we do that right now, but I think we should consider it. But I think this is a really great project. I think that the reputation of the folks making the exhibitions, the Spy Museum, other museums, they precede itself, so I think this will be very positive. I think that, Mr. Lieberth, to your point, I think we have a general idea of some of Akron's history, particularly the positive stuff, but we don't necessarily know the details until we really delve into them, whether, it might be a presentation that you do at the Maple Valley Library, or it might be a presentation you do for Leadership Akron, or it's usually through presentations that you do, right, that the rest of us learn about Akron's history. But how do we create a more ingrained version of doing that? I think this exhibit does that. I have one or two specific questions. So the city's contribution, and this might be for you, Mr. Volman, the city's contribution is $450,000 is over 2 years. That's through ARPA? What is that through?
We're using JED funds.
Okay, thank you. And then the $2 million budget, is there a way to get a copy of that and kind of broken down by what that entails?
Yes.
Okay. And then to that point, because this is kind of a building that's designated for nonprofit use, is the library or any other entity going to be paying rent to the building owner?
There will be no rent paid.
Okay.
The building properties owner, the Bowery Management LLC, will provide the space, which is already built out, which is why it's a tremendous advantage to have space that's basically finished with television cameras installed already, air conditioning and all of that. But the library will be obliged to pay the utilities for the space once the property is open. Part of our fundraising includes a sum that will assist the library in at least the first year or two so they don't have to do fundraising immediately. So we want to be able to have enough funds in a kind of an endowment so that we can pay those bills before the library gets into it, treating it like a branch library over the next decades.
And you are foreseeing my next question, which is there an agreement in place with the library as to kind of how the obligations that they're going to be taking on?
There is an agreement that's been drafted by Browse McDowell.
Okay.
The library has seen an early draft of it. We have assurances from their director and their board chair that they have consulted with the other board members and it will be approved, but it hasn't been signed yet.
Okay, great. And then the last question, you make this point importantly that there are positives and negatives to our history, and I think one thing is that it's important that we have as many voices at the table when we're kind of putting together that tapestry. I guess maybe it's more of a comment that I hope we do have kind of a dialogic process by which we can kind of put forward a draft and folks can weigh in and say, hey, actually there's a piece that might be missing and we want to make sure that's incorporated. To Mr. Fusco's point, there's a piece about Goodyear. I'm sure there are pieces about other things. I hope that's something we can incorporate in this process.
The second handout that you have is about the bicentennial itself, and the commission, which consists of 24 individuals, has been designed by Ms. Wilms and myself and the mayor and others who have had a hand in it to be as diverse a group as possible. And so we do have voices represented in that commission, which will be consulted on all of the projects dealing with the bicentennial, including this one. From all of the neighborhoods of Akron are represented. Every ward has representation. All underserved populations from the past are part of our bicentennial commission.
And I see here, it says that Akron City Council will be ex officio members?
The president of council will be an ex officio member.
Okay.
Also, Ms. Connor will be a member of the commission as well.
Okay. And are the commission meetings going to be public?
There's no decision been made about how those will be announced yet. When we did the Imagine Akron program 20 years ago, it also had a 24-member board, and individuals were welcome to come and attend if they chose to. Technically, it's a mayoral advisory board, and so the rules, the state statutes don't apply to mayoral advisory boards, and so I don't expect there to be any controversy over it. People who want to come will be invited and welcomed.
I think that'd be great. Do you have a sense of where these meetings might be held?
At an accessible public place with good parking.
Great, thank you.
About what time? Solid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to keep my questions brief and simple. Thank you, Mr. Lieberth, for your presentation. This is such exciting news. At a time when very much part of the top of the news cycle every day is about how we treat history and how we teach history and how we learn from history, I could not be happier. A mother, a grandmother, we've known each other a great long time, and I know we share the value of learning not just from the beauty of our history, but also from our mistakes. I am delighted to hear that you are taking a holistic approach to our history. This is very much part of what we are trying to do, I think, as a city in terms of resilience, that we are going to look unabashedly and courageously at all of it. So thank you specifically for those remarks. This may be a premature question, and if so, just say so and I'll wrap it up. In partnering with the public library, is it your vision or the organization's vision that the museum will be staffed by library staff? Is that a correct understanding? There
will be one employee from the Special Collections Division assigned to oversee the operation of the exhibit. With the Downtown Akron Partnerships contribution, they have a initiative referred to as the Urban Core, C-O-R-P-S Core, and it was actually started about 10 years ago when I was still part of the mayor's office, and we needed to have a unified group that could provide volunteers, not just for First Night at the time, but for Lock 3, Lock 4, for special events downtown. And so our conversations thus far with Ms. Graham at Downtown Akron Partnership have been to expand that role of the Urban Core, which already is in place, to include many older adults, more than likely, who will staff the exhibit on a volunteer basis during the day. There will also be some paid security that will be required, especially in evenings when the Civic Theater is letting out. Building D is a corridor from Main Street to Lock 4 and to the Cascade parking, so it will be open at many hours where there may only be one staff person present. We're dealing with those issues. The library seems to be satisfied right now of the commitment that they are able to make to keep it staffed. And we had 10 years experience at Lock 3 with an Akron history exhibit, better known as the Marble Museum, and it was completely staffed by volunteers and quite successfully. So we have hopes that that experience will bear fruit again with this center. And I don't mean to ever denigrate the other 16 history organizations that exist in Akron. They all have a role to play, and one of the functions of the Akron History Center will be to make certain that as visitors who are new to town or our residents can be referred to the Perkins Mansion, the John Brown Home, Cascade Locks Park Association, the Lighter Than Air Society Collection, the Mustel Store, the list goes on. The baseballs, halls of fame, all of those things that are already in place. The police museum, the fire museum, we hope, those exhibits as well. So it'll be a central location to refer people out to continue their journey on the study of Akron's history.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Well, if we entertain a motion for consent agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Against? The ayes have it. Thank you again for coming
Thank
down.
you, Mr. Fusco. Thank you, members of the committee.
Our next committee of the day will be the Public Safety Committee, beginning at 2:15. Those committee members are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick. Again, that's the Public Safety Committee that will begin at 2:15. Thank you.